Welcome to another video on my channel. My name is Michelle, and today we are going to talk about the first ever wearable slash garment that I have ever knitted in my life. I keep saying that it's my first wearable. However, I have made, I think, a beanie before in my life. I think I've made a very simple one with a very simple constructions. You make like basically a tube and then you just drag it all together in the top, so no decreasing. I've also made one kid's pair of socks, but they were not the greatest, but I did make them. And I don't know if I've ever made a scarf. I might have, but we're talking about just like a very, like maybe a handful of things that I've ever knitted in my life. I've started a lot of projects and never finished them. And at least as far as I can remember. So I'm hoping I'm not lying right now, but I did learn to knit long time ago. However, I only learned the bare basics. And even though I've tried many times to start different knitting projects, I always end up frogging it or, basically forgetting about it because it has been either hard to understand what to or how to be flexible, how to do certain things, maybe understanding a pattern and etc. But I've always gravitated as well to knitting images of people who've knitted different garments or actual patterns. I've actually looked at a lot of knitting patterns, even though I have not basically knitted much. And I think maybe that means that I've made or done the mental basically practice a lot, but maybe not the actions and physical actions a lot. So maybe all of that is the reason why I was able to make this cardigan. So we're going to talk all about my first garment, and it is the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit. So we are going to talk about this beautiful, I don't want to I just realized that I had attached the microphone to my new cardigan. Nice. So I don't want to move around too much to make a very annoying noise. I know it can be sensitive sometimes, but I will try to take some photos and images and videos for you guys to see more of the actual cardigan while talking about it. So like I said, it's the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit, and the recommended yarn for this pattern is the Sandnes yarn, the Pierre Gynt. It depends. Like I'm Swedish, so I would pronounce it Peer Gynt, but I don't know how it would pronounce in Danish. But it's the Sandnes garn, Sandnes garn or yarn, depending on how you pronounce it or what name goes. I don't remember if she had it was like a marine, almost night blue on the pattern descriptions, but I guess you can have obviously whichever color you prefer. I actually chose to use what I had because obviously first garment, first ever cardigan, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. So I chose to use the Drops Flora, which is like 65% wool and 35% alpaca. And I held it double, so I got that at least because I think the Peer Gynt is a DK or worsted yarn, and I think the Flora is a fingering yarn. So I needed to get a little bit more thickness there. So I used a little bit less than 10 skeins of the Flora yarn, and I used the color 31 Sand, I think it was called. And that made me, and I made the size small, I think. I'm happy with the size, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's like, I was a little bit honestly worried before blocking it, but after blocking it, obviously it grew a bit, and I don't have all the cool tools for blocking these big pieces. I have for like brownie squares, but I don't have for a like garment. So I would have to invest in one of those eventually. But what I did was basically soak this for 15 or 20 minutes, and then I basically squeezed with a towel out all the water, excess water, as much as I could, and then I just laid it out flat and tried to hope for the best and make sure that I sort of not drag the fabric, but like try to like at least push it out a little bit so it got a little bit length. I think this could make it like this could probably be made a little bit even bigger if I had, an actual a blocking mat where you can needle it up properly. But I'm happy with the length that I received after doing just that simple blocking, if you will. And I can see myself making this in a size M and still enjoy it as well, because I do like sometimes that oversized look. And I think that sometimes, there's days where you want a more fitting cardigan, and then there are going to be days where you want to have just the oversized to just almost use as a jacket on a semi-warm, semi-cold day. So I think S or M would have been fine. And I think my yarn amount that I had, 10 skeins of the floor, would have fitted into the size M as well. But I'm not gonna obviously promise that. I have only made this one. So I used also a 3 and a 4 millimeter crochet, not crochet hood, needles, millimeter needles, 3 and 4 millimeter needles. But the pattern says that you should have 3.5 needles, and those are usually for the cuffs or the ribbing part. But I found that the 3 was okay anyway. As you can see, I don't think it was bad, and maybe even better for me, because I feel like I like the idea of it going in a good amount. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on that, and I used the 4 on the body parts. Body parts. That sounds disgusting. The other parts of the cardigan. However, I did meet gauge. I did do a gauge swatch, and I frogged it up and used that as part of the making this. So yeah, so I felt very comfortable starting the project with that all in mind, and with all that, having all of those things, and done my best to try to. I did measure my chest and everything to see which size would fit the best for me, and I trusted the pattern. And I've heard so much good about Petite Knit's pattern, that they are very true to. Many people find them very easy to follow and true to size. So that's why I did it. I know I did use a different yarn, so I was a little bit scared of that, but trusted the gauge swatch that I had made. So what I learned basically is everything you can imagine. I mean, I started out almost with nothing, I would say, and I learned to do because I think you start with the neck part, and then you increase to get out from to the shoulder part, and then you work a little bit out and around, back and forth. So I'm sure there's all fancy names for these. I read the pattern in Swedish, so I don't know all the English names, but I don't know if it's called the drop down shoulder. I don't think it's the horse, the shoulder, like those. It's like, obviously, yeah. I know, like, if you know the names, please drop it in the comment below, because I'm always like trying to learn more. But I think it's more of a drop shoulder, but I don't quote me on that. And so you work a little bit on the arm, and then before, like, yeah, basically attaching it here, where you start working on the body and leave the arms for later. And I really enjoyed that I didn't have to pick up so many stitches. Is that what you call it in English? Stitches? Because I know we're using different words in Swedish, but I think it's stitches, right? Anyway, so you just needed to pick up basically around or underneath your armpit, and then just because that you had the other stitches basically resting on a spare yarn or something like that. So that was very nice, and it didn't take me so long to make the arms. However, it did take me some time to figure out what was the best method for the arms. I started out with like sock stitches, like double pointed needles, stock stitch. Sorry for all the words. It's like a new vocabulary that I need to learn, a new dictionary. So I started out with sock needles, where you have the double pointed needles, so like 4 or 5 needles. And I started doing that, and I felt like it took me a long time, and I didn't feel like it was like making it all even as I wanted. So I changed into what I thought was a magic loop technique. Eventually, what I did was I actually had a too short cord, but not long enough. Like, it was like basically not fitting, so it made it complicated. And then I really understood how to make an actual magic loop, which you need a much longer cord, and that worked out for a long time. But then I ordered also the circular needles and the shorter needles, which I felt was very cool to use, because then it's almost like the exact fit when for the armpit, and then you just work around like a little, like it felt like a bee, like we're just working around, and it went very fast. So the second arm went faster than the first arm, I would say. I didn't have any issues making the ribbing part. I think that went really nice. I learned to do the Italian bind off. I'm sure I made some mistake, but I hope it's not too visible. But that was also really cool and fun to learn. I did wonder, however, if I like maybe the backside of the Italian bind off more than I do like the outside of it. I mean, looking like that, it looks pretty cool. Like I don't mind it, but I do wonder if I would have wanted to do it there. So you have that other part instead going or facing out. But otherwise, I don't mind. I did end up doing the Italian bind off on the here on the button band as well, just because when I try to do just regular binding off, like where you almost get like this, I guess a line almost reminding me of a crocheted line almost. And I wasn't sure if I was doing it correctly or if that was how it was supposed to look, because I was comparing it a little bit to my cups, I guess, as well. And so I just ended up doing the Italian bind off on the whole bottom band, which obviously took a little time. Looks really cool and neat. I'm happy I did, but I do wonder if like maybe I would have just been just as fine to not have done that and just done the regular binding off, because I did see someone else making the or have made the Eva Cardigan, and they had done the just regular bind off, and I thought, well, that looks actually pretty cool and neat. So maybe I should have saved myself some time and done that instead. But yeah, maybe on the next sweater slash cardigan. So yeah, and then I was a little bit nervous with the button band, because when it comes to the challenges that I had with this cardigan, it was actually these little buttonholes. It was saying, and I can only say what it said in Swedish, but it was the 3 double loop something. I don't know, 3 dubbla ögleuppslag. So it was like you had to do wind it around, like do something with the thread twice or double before making something. And I thought it was like very like confusing. I tried to Google it. I tried to look at YouTube, other videos, and I didn't feel like I found a good solution. So I just like winged it. And you can see that it looks a little bit uneven on one of the sides here, but it doesn't matter, especially if you use the buttons. You won't see it. The button covers that. However, I don't think I will use this with sorry for making it. I don't think I will have this tied or like button up so much, but I did feel like that was one of the things that I didn't figure out yet, and I would like to figure it out before, for example, if I make another cardigan again. I did not enjoy also picking up stitches or loops, whatever you call them, in the because I felt like it was sometimes hard to understand exactly where to pick up those loops. If like you have like the stitch like that, the V stitch, if you will, it was like, should I go in via like in the middle of that? Should I go on the side of that? Like, how do I make it like look nice? And sometimes I feel like I got it and then I didn't get it. So I'm sure with practice I might make it easier. I also feel like I've seen two different ways of picking up stitches slash loops, which is like where people basically, when they say, oh, pick up let's say 10 loops or 10 stitches, then they actually use the thread to pick up. They go in, pick up some thread and drag it out. Others just like use basically loops from the already stitches that exist there. And I don't know, which I think it's hard to pick up the thread with just those knitting needles. I think it would be a different story if I used a crochet hook and fished up that thread. But yeah, I don't know which is the best methods. I'm sure there's maybe others as well, but I found that is still being a bit of a hard or a little bit not the easiest way to do it. And like I said, it was the binding off of on the bottom band that I also wanted to mention as like a little confusing part, because I wasn't sure. But I think it's maybe a bit of because I was also a little bit scared that this was going to maybe snug up or like crump up, crumple up. I don't even know what's a good word for it, but it actually lays very flat once you've especially blocked it. So doesn't really matter what kind of bind off. I think it won't change the whole look or feeling of the cardigan. So my final thoughts here is that it took some time because I wanted to do the garment, and I don't know if it was the greatest one to make as a first ever knitting project for a like wearable, because it took a little time to when you're working with a cardigan, you go like to one side and then you have to work back in and purl, and then you have to go back and then purl it back again. And purling can be a little bit like takes a little time, but however, with that said, I feel like I got a lot of practice. And after a while, when I started doing those purling back, I actually didn't mind it. And I was like, what is happening? Why am I not finding this too hard? So I guess like again with practice, you sort of like yeah, it doesn't become as hard as it or feel as uncomfortable because you keep repeating it and eventually it feels more natural. So maybe I don't mind it as much as I'm saying right now. But yeah, you work back and forth. I'm sure it will go faster if you work in the rounds, like when you make a jumper or something, because then you just keep working basically around. And I would like to basically experience that feeling of making a jumper. When I try to though also think about what would I use myself right now, and because I'm still breastfeeding, sorry for the too much information, but I'm still breastfeeding, and it's easier to just have a cardigan and just like easy to open up the goodies. And if I have a jumper, I mean, I sometimes do, and I just like take it up and take it down, and sometimes that can be nice too because you get a little bit of coverage. So maybe I shouldn't be so scared of making a jumper. Yeah, I don't know. I'm back and forth, and not so sure which will be my next project. I was going to say, oh, well, let's go make just something small now, like a beanie, but I feel like I've started already making socks, and I've started making. So I'm almost done with the first pair of socks, and I've started also making another Sophie scarf, like a short one with some extra yarn that I had, like not scrap yarn, but like I only had one bowl of it, so I'm trying to use that. So I already feel like I'm making like accessories, and I feel like I want to have another piece of clothing on my needle, so I will probably have something bigger, but I'm not sure what yet. And I like the look, by the way. I also wanted to say with this Eva cardigan that even though I think it was really good for me to learn this button band and I like it, I think it looks really cool. I have seen people making I don't know if it's called the double knitted button band, where it's like almost like a little thicker, a little bit more sturdy, and I like the look of that. So I would love to try that eventually as well. Wow, my mouth is getting all twisted up here. Tongue, not mouth. Anyway, so I have got the taste of. I feel like I've been bitten by the knitting bug, and I just feel like I want to do more and more. And I just feel like anytime, like when I get a little slow moment in the day, I just want to grab those knitting needles more than I want to grab those crochet hooks right now, because it's like the new shiny things. I just want to like keep experience all these new things with knitting, even though like there's still things to learn when it comes to crocheting. But I do squeeze in some of my crochet things as well, because you get a little bit faster results with that. And I do like the idea of like getting more from your yarn though when it comes to knitting, that you get more out of that yarn. Like if I would have crocheted a cardigan like this, I would have used much more yarn than I did while making this. And I like the idea that you get like much more from your yarn. So that's why I also gravitate to knitting at the moment. But yeah, that's all I really had. So if you have any advice for my next project, and we'll see if it's going to be another cardigan, just because it's convenient and it's like easy, and we're going into summertime here in Sweden. So we'll see if I'm going to jump on that, or if I'm going to go on and try to make a jumper in between. But yeah, if you have any good advice on how to maybe make the bottom bands, if you have a video to refer to, if you understand that the thing that I said, the tredubbla ögleuppslag, or if you made the Eva cardigan, maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about when making those first stitches that will, I guess, close up that hole that you have made for the button hole there. So yeah, if you know how to do that one, let me know. That would be very helpful. I'm sure I'm going to make another Eva cardigan eventually as well with the new knowledge right now that I have, and probably obviously in a different color, maybe also in a different yarn. I might end up with saying this Flora um, Drops Flora is, I wouldn't say it's itchy. I don't mind actually having it. I can feel maybe a little bit itchy on the neck part right now. So, but I'm certain that it will be also softening up the more I use it and also with time. But I don't mind this yarn, but it could be considered itchy for some people. Just putting it out there. Maybe if you pair it with something softer, it might be a little bit kinder to your skin. But yeah, that's all I had to say. So yeah, any good advice is welcomed. And next time we'll see if it's going to be another podcast episode or if it's going to be another just project video. So I hope you're working on something really cool, and let me know in the comments below if you're working on something that you're really enjoying, and maybe you can inspire me to do or to pick that pattern up too. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.